Thank you. And I know I'm one of the last presentations. Don't worry, I only have 100 slides because I'm a marketing person. No, I don't really. So just a little bit about me. I did go to MIT. I was an engineer originally in my career, but I always asked a lot of questions about business, and the engineers always said, you should go to business school. So I went to business school. I have an MBA. So I have a traditional business perspective that I bring to the game industry. In my background, I've been a VP of marketing in high-tech companies. I've ran product management for billion-dollar businesses at IBM, and I didn't really like making a lot of money, so I decided to come to the board game industry. I joined Rob here to help him grow White Wizard Games because I was really jealous of how much fun he has at work. Seriously, I would hate going to my job every day, and he would love going to his job every day and want to work all the time. And I wanted that, and I have that. So I wanted to come here and talk with you and give back to the community. Hopefully you'll learn something from this. I worked on the original Star Realms marketing plan, which I took a look at and to prepare for this presentation because I know a lot of you are working on your first game, trying to get your first big hit. And I did that in my spare time while I was an executive in high tech. I'd sneak down to the coffee shop during my half-hour lunch break and work on marketing. So you don't have to have a ton of time to do marketing for a board game company, but it is very important. And now I'm the COO. I basically do a lot of everything that's not design and development, so all the business side. So just looking at the market, I feel like I have to stand right next to this microphone. There's a lot of unplayed games. The general market's really growing, but in the hobby game industry, there's so many Kickstarters, it's so flooded, retailers aren't sure which titles to carry. How are you going to stand out? So I want to start out with the presentation around how do you stand out as a person. So as a designer, how do you make your game stand out? So talk a little bit about unique value proposition as a marketing term, but don't worry, I'm not going to get all marketing speak on you, I hope. I'll talk about audiences and thinking about who is going to be playing your game and how to make the kind of offers to them that they will click and sign up for your mailing list. I know a lot of people ask, how do I grow my mailing list? And also click to back your Kickstarter. I'll talk about that for people who are interested in that. And then engaging in community building. So personal branding. You're not going to sign your game because you get noticed, but people won't be able to see your game unless they know who you are. So I've seen some different techniques that people use. I've tried to look at best practices and give you some examples in this presentation. It's about getting noticed and being remembered. So think about what you are good at. So some people are good at some things, some people are good at other things. I'm going to talk about some examples, and hopefully you can get some ideas on how you can improve your personal branding. I certainly got some more ideas from looking at this. So some people distinguish themselves by how they look. So, for example, some people look really good in cowboy hats. So from far away this morning, I saw Dan Yarrington, and I knew right away, hey, Dan's here. Everyone knows Dan. You can spot him a mile away, and it's really awesome. So not everyone wants to look different. This is Josh Hale. He likes to wear rainbow suits and neon green. And Daniel Zayas here is pretty famous for just taking selfies with everybody in the universe. So there's other ways to differentiate yourself. One is writing a book. So this is a book by Isaac and Jeffrey. If you write a book, it shows I'm a thought leader in the industry. People hear about you. They see it. They can also look at your book and see how brilliant you are. I was actually saying to Isaac that I was thinking about what was needed in board game books, and I was thinking about this exact concept because I used to be in the software industry, and this book looks amazing. And he's selling it at the BG. He has a couple of copies, and it'll be in the BGG Con store. So just a little pitch for that. And best practices in marketing in general is consistent content and thought leadership. So not just writing a book, but can you also write a blog every week? Can you do weekly videos? Can you do a podcast? I don't know how many of you are familiar with Gabe Barrett. I don't think he's here, but he does the Board Game Design Lab, and it is fabulous. I went to his website, and I thought, this guy must have a marketing background because he has this content, 71 ways to become a great game designer. The only thing I would have done differently on that is when you click on it, I would have made you give me your email address to get that piece of content. So if you can write great content like that people want, that people are willing to give you their email address to get, that's the kind of stuff you want to build your brand and to get people's contact information so you can stay in touch with them. He also does a weekly podcast, and he gets the most amazing speakers. Everyone who's famous in the industry pretty much has been on. I haven't been on his podcast, so I guess I'm not famous enough. But he's gotten all the top designers and a lot of the top business people. So by doing that, he's tying his personal brand to leaders in the industry. It's super, super brilliant. He also has a book that he recently came out with, and a lot of the content was from interviews with other experts. So he didn't even write, a lot of the direct content himself, but he curated content from other people. So this is a good strategy if you don't want to think about, if you don't want to come up with awesome, deep concepts, you can interview people who are thought leaders and find out why they think that and delve into it and help other people get their knowledge. Because, a lot of the thought leaders don't write blogs and don't do their own podcasts, so they're happy to talk on yours. And I'm going to talk about why you would want to be on other people's podcasts as well. Okay, Stonemaier Games is like a content machine. Again, other than Gabe, this is like the best example of how you can do personal branding and how you can grow your audience. So if you haven't checked out their site, I highly recommend it. He does awesome content like my top 10 favorite deck building games. Anyone in this room could also write a similar piece, again, and put it on their site and have a mailing list where he doesn't actually require you to give your email to get a lot of his content, but if you were trying to grow a mailing list, you could. He also, he's an expert on Kickstarter. He doesn't even run Kickstarters anymore. That's how good he is at writing content. He does weekly videos, very consistent. So consistency, if you can get on a schedule, don't try to do everything. You don't have to have a podcast, a blog, YouTube channel. Just pick one thing and be consistent. Write a blog once a month. It doesn't have to be every week, but start somewhere and get the word out that you know what you're talking about. You know people in the industry. You have something to say. So once people notice you and you want to talk about your game, so I've been in the room with some game pitches, and I've also gone to the speed dating, and this seems very obvious to me as a marketing person, but I'm just going to repeat it here, that it's really important to very crisply be able to talk about what makes your game different. I know you've all heard it before, but just think about this. And if anyone, I know some people have a lot of experience, other people don't. If anyone wants to come to me and practice what they would say in a game pitch, I'm happy to listen. But basically, this is the only game that does X, Y, Z. You're not necessarily going to explain it that way with a publisher, but just going through the exercise of what is it that makes your game different than anybody else's. Because if it isn't different than everybody else's, then why are you spending all your time going around showing it to people? I also find it helpful when people can say this game is like Game X, except for it's different or better because of this other thing. I know some people don't think that's a good idea, but if you look at how gamers talk about games in the market, that's how they talk about them. You'll see it all the time where they'll compare one game to another. So Star Realms. When I actually worked on this originally, I didn't know that much about the industry, but this was a pretty easy game to differentiate. The only deck building game that fits in your pocket. It was much smaller than other games, and it cost $15. And then we didn't start out with this differentiation of no need to collect gems and stuff, but this was some of the feedback we got when we were showing it to people. They would think in their minds and compare it to Dominion, Ascension, and other games. So again, thinking about and at least having an answer. So I had to go play Dominion, of course, after that, because I hadn't played it. So it's very important to know how the other games play if people compare and contrast your games to other games. I spend a lot of time looking at how gamers in the market describe games, because I don't know about you, but when I read marketing copy on the back of game boxes, sometimes it just sounds very dry. It's not really that interesting. They all sound the same, but if you look, this is an example of an Instagram post of a gamer who talks about I don't know this game. I just thought this was actually a really cool description. Ruthless is a pirate-themed deck building-ish game with some poker-driven battles for points over 5 rounds. And she goes into more detail, but this for people, some people asked me during lunch about social media and how to use Instagram, how to use Facebook. This is an example of a really good Instagram post. I make posts like this where I show a game I'm playing and I talk about it and I have pictures about it. It's not our games, just to get out there and show that I play games. So your posts shouldn't all be about your games. You can write posts like this about other people's games. There's another example. In terms of target audience, I wanted to give specific examples of like how we thought about our audience for Star Realms so that you can understand what we mean by defining your target audience. So some of the original audiences that we talked about initially were Ascension fans, Magic the Gathering players, and lapsed Magic the Gathering players. People who used to play Magic, but now they're married. They don't want to be spending so much money, but they still want the challenge. One of the reasons why we really focus on Magic the Gathering players is it comes back to your strengths. So I talked at the beginning about your personal branding and thinking about what you're good at. Rob and Darwin were Magic the Gathering Hall of Famers. They knew a lot of influencers in the market. And so we focused on one of the key marketing strategies for Star Realms was for them to reach out to Magic the Gathering pro players and tell them about the game and try to get them to also help promote the game. So that's another example of something you can do. So in terms of marketing offers, so when you're doing social media posts, you're doing emails, you're doing advertisements, if you get to the point where you're paying for ads, compelling offers. So there's been a lot of science behind ads, so I just want to kind of give you high-level categories of what will get people to click and what people are interested in. I say what gamers want because I kind of focus this around what I see be successful in the gaming market. So exclusivity, stretch goals, a product they won't be able to get anywhere else, information like, get the best tips on XYZ before anyone else, early access, people are really afraid of not getting Wingspan before everybody else, that kind of stuff. Free stuff is a big thing with gamers, so we give out a lot of free things. I'll talk about some of the examples of things that we do in marketing, and then they also want to be part of something. So it was a key part of our initial marketing strategy with Star Realms that we wanted to have a community, we wanted to build up a group of people, and it came from our history with Magic the Gathering, and that's a big thing with Magic the Gathering, right? You go to your game store, you go to the Pro Tours, and you have your group of friends, and it worked really well for us, and our players have a strong community, and they really love it, and I encourage people to think about how to build that. I'll talk about some examples. And then recognition. So we also do tournaments and things like that where we recognize people. Immediate call to actions, this is a marketing term, but basically when you are doing ads or you're doing social media, you always want to give someone something to do. So come click here to get this thing. If you want to grow your audience in terms of growing your mailing list, then you need to actually get their email address. So having a link, having a page, I'll talk about what makes a good page, is really important. So I'm going back to Gabe's website, because when I went to his website, I was like, wow, this is like a pretty awesome. I've worked on a lot of landing pages in my career, and when you go to his site, this pops up, and it's just really straightforward. He offers you free stuff, free resources that you can't get unless you sign up. And then you got to click on the gimme free stuff, unless you want to say, I hate free stuff. And who could click that? So he has some humor in there as well. So again, best practices in terms of when you're engaging people and you bring them to a landing page, it's really important that the page is very simple and has a button and has a place for their email, not a lot of other stuff going on. A lot of people forget that. I'm going to go over some examples of offers to people. Again, what can you offer people to get them to give you their email address? And this is an example of what we give out. One of the things we give out at trade shows. We're very old-fashioned. We print postcards and give them out. And one of the reasons why we do this, a couple of reasons. One is we have a free thing. It's a free Steam code, and we put on here, it's a $4.99 value. You usually pay $5 for the Star Realms app. I know most people don't have an app, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be an app. But when we're at the convention, we want to engage people. So you can say, hey, would you like a free Steam code? Hey, and it gives our demo staff, which they're all gamers, so they don't necessarily really like to socially interact with people. So having the postcard actually gives them a reason to talk to people walking by, and that's been a huge thing for us. We have very large booths. Our demo seats are usually full, and this is a part of the reason. I'll talk a little bit about conventions, but like attitude and passion at conventions is really important in terms of engaging people. This was another promotion. So I have examples that aren't from us. So Arch Ravelry is a game that was kickstarted by XYZ Game Labs, and I thought this was a really fun promotion that they did. They did it at Gen Con, and I saw it, and you could, if you went to their booth, you could get, and you like, I think you had to like be an advanced backer, so you had to commit to backing their Kickstarter. You would get a patch or a pin or $5 off your Kickstarter. And I really wanted this patch. I don't even knit, okay? But I thought this was really cool. I thought it was a really fun theme. I didn't make it over to their booth, but their marketing still worked. So I didn't make it to their booth because Gen Con's crazy. So they didn't have to give me a free pin. They didn't have to give me a free patch. But I had it in my mind. And then when I later saw the Kickstarter and everyone was talking about it, I did go back and I backed it. So in terms of growing your audience and getting people to engage and give you the email, it's not a one-touch thing. So marketing, like science and all the data shows, you need to touch people multiple times. So, keep trying different things, different techniques, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, conventions. It's not just a one-step approach. This was an example at lunch. So I changed up my presentation a little bit after lunch because I realized, well, some people, didn't have as much experience or didn't have a lot of experience in marketing. And someone asked, what kind of alternative things can you do for offers? Because, not everyone has an app or, things like this. So this was something we did to build the Hero Realms mailing list. We kind of wanted to do something different, and we were thinking about doing a charitable donation. So if you signed up for our mailing list, we donated a game to Toys for Tots. And it was pretty successful. I mean, we got a few thousand people signed up, which, we do have a big mailing list and, a big reach already, but I think it was still a very compelling offer to get people to sign up, because when we have people sign up for these things, it means they may not already be on our existing mailing list, so it's a big deal. Does anyone have any examples of cool offers they've seen? People do?
We did a thing for paperback where they signed up for our email list on a physical typewriter, and all the young kids didn't know how to make it work, and all the old people just slammed it.
Awesome. So yeah, like just being creative and thinking about what works with your theme and your style, your culture. Is there any other examples or ideas? Anyone? Yeah, people love that. I find it hard to resist that. Anyone? I think. And I backed that. I felt so bad. You did a really nice job with that. Everyone wanted to help you out, and you had a thematic game. That was awesome. I think there was a couple other. Darryl?
High school did a trip to Antarctica.
I missed that.
Yeah, you had to send in a video of you playing trick shots.
That's awesome.
One of the best trick shot video I actually got to go meet penguins.
That's awesome.
So I worked on a game with an IP that has a lot of expansion potential, and so we had people suggest characters they want to see in the game in the future as a big thing, and we also had for our Kickstarter, we had people, only backers could get to vote on who the next team would be. That's pushed a lot of hardcore fans into it.
That's awesome. Yes, people love to contribute to the game design.
So this is what's happening now that I just noticed, which is Arcane Wonders has, if you sign up for the mailing list now, when the Kickstarter launches for their next game, you will be eligible for a unique miniature that only people who sign up for the events will get.
Did they even say what the next Kickstarter was?
Yeah, no, it's for Emerson Matsuuchi's new role game. I forget the exact name of it.
That sounds like a really good offer. The logistics of it, I don't even want to think about it. But another one?
Yeah, it's not my project, but I want to point out that Breaking Games, Dwellings of Eldervale, had possibly the best Kickstarter program I've ever seen. They did everything from live plays to
I was like, do you want to get up and take a bow? Oh, you're lying down. Okay. So just in terms of engagement, we talked about consistent content. Meeting expectations is important. So, you don't want to send an email, every couple of days. I really can't stand it. Maybe some of you guys do this, but when people are running Kickstarters and, literally every day you're getting an email, and that makes me unsubscribe really fast. A key to building your mailing list is also keeping people on your mailing list and having them actually open your emails. So there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into that. I'm not going to get into that, but try to think about how would I like to be treated and what would I like to get from a company. And remember that people are subscribed to a lot of mailing lists. You're not the only one. The going where they go. So I had some questions during lunch about can I do marketing without really doing social media? Not really. Even our mailing list, I'll talk about with Kickstarters, we do bring in a lot of backers through our mailing list, but I still consider social media to be our number one priority in terms of communicating with our community, because people are just on there constantly, with mobile phones and smartphones and people keeping their phones next to them when they're sleeping at night. It's that's where people are at. Sometimes, they might be on Board Game Geek, they might be on Reddit, so there's a lot of different places. I would say, you don't have to be everywhere. There is a big community on Reddit, and people talk about our games on Reddit, but we don't happen to have big Reddit participants, in the company. We do post on there occasionally, but it's not one of our primary things. If I had someone that was really good and active in Reddit, I would do that. So, there's some places where you definitely should be. Absolutely Facebook. I've really been enjoying Twitter and Instagram. I don't think they're absolutely necessary, but you can build really close relationships with a group of people pretty quickly there. And obviously Board Game Geek, you really need to get your games on there. The 80-20 rule. So when you're pushing content out, and this is really more for social media, not for email marketing, but it comes into play with email marketing too. Don't just talk about yourself. A lot of posts shouldn't be about selling your product. You need to know who you're targeting. That's why it's important to think about who am I targeting, and think about what would this person be interested in. So, I'll give some examples. I think I have some examples in here, but you see people posting on holidays or, various topics, or, hey, Mandalorian, doesn't it stink? Or, whatever. Disney Plus is awesome, all that stuff. But, that's stuff that our community is very interested in. So it's okay to post about that. You don't have to just only say, here's the latest release. Let me show you my art for my game. It's cool to also recognize other people and to say, look at this really cool art from this other game, which we don't make. It's helpful. You can also build friendships up that way, where you're talking about other people's stuff and then they might mention your stuff. So, it's important. Community building, customer service are important to keep your fans. We listen to our fans quite a bit, so we're lucky. We have a fan-created community on Facebook, and they're very active. And, for example, they wanted online tournaments. So our game, Epic Card Game, plays more like a trading card style game. So because it's that type of game, we had giant prizes and giant trophies. And the Star Realms players said, hey, we want a big trophy. We want a big prize. And, we said, okay. And here's Jackie. She won the $10,000 tournament at Origins last year and got this giant trophy. So listening, we never planned to do that. We never planned to have giant trophies and giant prizes for Star Realms. They also wanted everybody in the community to be able to play in the final tournament. So we ended up allowing a lot more people to play than we initially thought. So that communication and listening, when people give feedback, you'll see that successful companies and successful designers do that. Here's some examples of social media engagement that's an 80% not selling our game. So, hey, National Redhead Day today, and this is one of our epic cards, which features was based on one of our employees who has red hair and a red beard. And we asked people to, post about their favorite fictional character with red hair. We actually got a lot of engagement. It was kind of a total experiment. You should definitely experiment in social media. Sometimes it'll be a flop and nobody will engage. But sometimes you're yeah, people are really into this. So people posted Felicia Day and other people, and it was kind of fun. But we weren't trying to sell anybody anything, obviously. We also have something called Wizard Wednesday, where we post a question, engage people. So, Rob mentioned Kapow earlier. We have a new superhero game. So we ask people, who's your favorite superhero? And on Instagram, if you comment on our thread, we'll share one of your board game posts on our story because, as we talked about, like other people want followers, they want recognition. We can help them get that. So, these are just some examples of ideas. But again, it's like this reached 1,400 people, which is good if you don't do social media. I started my own personal Instagram just as a kind of an experiment to see how hard would it be if you're just a new person, start your own Instagram. It's called Board Game Wire. And also because I was taking a lot of pictures of games that were not our games. And I was like, I can't flood our Instagram with 1 million pictures of other games. And so I started my own, and I started it, I don't know, maybe about 6 months ago. I have over 500 followers now, which is pretty good for a new account. And things I do is I look and I'll see, oh, this is really cool. I love this is Dice Hospital, and this woman posted the picture, and it had really cool meeples. These meeples are nurses holding giant syringes, and I was like, cool meeples, cute meeples. That's how I engage. I see something I like, I click or I comment. It's very easy. It's actually kind of fun and addictive. The other thing I'll mention on that on social media is if you have children or teenagers or relatives that have teenagers, they're really good at social media. So, they can also advise you if you're not as knowledgeable. So Wizard Wednesday actually was an idea from my 16-year-old daughter. So this is my Twitter. Giveaways are another big thing where you can engage and reach people that you wouldn't normally reach. This was a total experiment for me. I just did it yesterday, and I've already had 1.4K views. I saw these awesome dice that my friend was making, and if you buy dice from her, she's raising the money for our local game store. She runs a game store, but, doesn't make any money, so she needs to make dice to help support the game store, and it's an awesome community center for teens, and so I wanted to support that, but also I thought dice are getting a lot of hits on Instagram and on Twitter, so, I said, well, let's try it out. Maybe it'll work for me too, and hey, it did. So the point here is looking at what works for other people. Don't be afraid to copy other people. If other people are giving away awesome dice and it's working really well, you can give away awesome dice too. Happens all the time. They probably got the idea from somebody else. So I definitely encourage you. And see, I also used hashtags here. So hashtags are really important in social media. They help people find your content. And also for you, in terms of if you have a new account, when I created the new Instagram account, I search for hashtags to find people to follow. So you search for hashtags, you'll see content you like, you find people that have content you like, and you friend them. And what's actually really nice is when I go to BGG Con or other conventions, people come up to me. I never met them, but I know them from Twitter or I know them from Instagram, and it's actually really cool. And I feel like I really do know them. I got together with someone in Amsterdam that I knew from Twitter. So gatherings. People like gatherings, and if you group together with other people, they can be pretty inexpensive. This is an example of a media gathering that we're doing at PAX Unplugged, and it was, I think, $500 or something to sponsor. Because it's multiple companies coming together, it's not super expensive. So if you want to do a big launch, this is the kind of thing you could think about doing. You can ask me. I'll have my contact information at the end. You can come up and talk to me at the end, but I'm happy to help you with ideas. I'm an idea machine. I don't have time to do your marketing for you, but I'm happy to give ideas. So conventions, free giveaways, again, board gamers like free stuff. So if you're going to spend the money on a booth, you should have something to give people, something to market to get them there. And when you market it, use the event hashtag. Really important who you have at your booth, too. So we have an awesome demo team. This team on the left is a few of the women that work at our Essen booth, and on the right is our usual crowd in the United States, a bunch of people who've been working with us for many years. If you don't have passionate people that are able to talk to people walking by, it's really hard to fill your demo seats. And this is true even if you're just playing your game in an open gaming area. We're going to BGG-Con. We don't have a booth because I want to play games, but we'll probably play some of our games in the open gaming area. If you're friendly and you're smiling, people might want to play your game with you. It's important. Media. So I just wanted to touch on the importance of media and reaching out to media. I just did a quick search on these are some Star Realms reviews that have been done. And in the early days, Rob was working, at Stoneblade, but on the side at conventions, he'd go and he'd meet with people and talk to them about Star Realms too. So, again, it doesn't have to be a full-time thing. You can go to a show and work at someone's booth, get to know a publisher, and then in your free time, schedule a meeting with reviewers. Here's some of our Hero Realms ones. So how do you get media to cover you? I mean, for us, we've been working on this for many years, so we have established relationships, but there's a Board Game Reviewers media group on Facebook. It's a great group. There's like 5,000 people. If you post on there the type of game you have and that you're looking for reviewers, plenty of people post on there. They're not established publishers, and people are very interested. If they're interested in the theme or the type of game, they'll be like, yeah, I want to review this. If you're not well established, you might have to start out with reviewers that don't have as big of a following, because the people like, Dice Tower, etc., have huge long lists of people wanting to have their games reviewed by them. You can also engage with reviewers. So, a lot of the reviewers are like many of us, have full-time jobs and they're doing this on the side, and they love it when people engage, talk about their content, comment on their stuff on social media. You can also schedule time at conventions, and you can pay them if you need to. I can give you the list, but there's some reviewers that will review. They do more previews, but they will do content on your game. The reason to do media is it allows you to reach someone else's audience. So, they talk about your stuff, and then that person, even though they never knew you, will get reached through their audience. I'm going to talk about Kickstarter now, because if someone does a video review of you, but they don't have anywhere to send to the person, then it's not that helpful. But if you're running an active Kickstarter, that's the best time to do media. Then they can send them to your Kickstarter. When someone goes to your Kickstarter, they'll be able to back your project and, sign up for basically back your project. You need to have an opt-in question on Kickstarter, sign up for your mailing list, and there's a time constraint. Your project's running for 20 days or 30 days, so they need to do it right away. One of the big things about Kickstarter that, I talk to people, not a lot of people, but some people complain, oh, big companies, why are they on Kickstarter? Oh, my Simon's running a Kickstarter the same week I was going to run a Kickstarter. That's actually a really good thing. These are stats here from our Star Realms Frontiers Kickstarter. So I track all of our marketing initiatives in Kickstarter. I'm happy to explain that to anyone if you guys are running Kickstarters, but I just cropped out 2 rows of the dashboard which show what percentage of our revenue came from certain things. So this first line, 12% of our Kickstarter came from the day one email we sent out to our mailing list. So that's just want to stress the importance of mailing lists and how it can drive revenue. So that was from the day one. We actually send out probably like 5 emails during the course of the campaign. And the second one, which I want to touch on, especially for new companies, is the Tabletop Games Discover. So these were people that were on Kickstarter. Maybe they came for Star Wars Frontiers, maybe they came for the latest Simon Kickstarter, but they found our Kickstarter, through that, and that was almost 11% of our Kickstarter revenue. So you can get that bump from people who happen to be on Kickstarter and then come across your Kickstarter. So a lot of people don't really know that, so kind of wanted to share that data with you so you can see that it is, even for people who are established, it drives a lot of the percentage of the revenue. There's also another General Discover, which isn't on that, because I just wanted to crop out a couple of rows. In terms of messaging, and if you're running Kickstarters, I highly encourage you to look at Kickstarter Facebook ads. I have some examples here, and I'm happy to email anyone my presentation, or I don't know if we're going to post them somewhere. And the reason why I say this is there's a couple of companies that run these ads that come from these weird Facebook sites like Top Kickstarter Games and Top Crowdfunding Projects, and they pour a lot of money into ads, and the data teaches them, because you can look at which ads are driving money, what messages are working. So looking at these ads can help you figure out what is the type of messaging that people are clicking on and spending real dollars in this industry. So, here's a couple examples. Ready to battle your friends in the most bloodthirsty multiplayer game yet? Enter Chop. So I encourage you to do that. Here's a couple others, like the most comfortable backpack for carrying your board games. Like, they probably tested, 10 different ads, and this was the one that was driving the most. So basically, when you're running Facebook ads, if you're doing best practices, which these agency companies are, you start out with a bunch of ads, you rotate through different images, you rotate through different text, and then you figure out which one has the best performance, and that's what you then pour a lot of money into. So the ones that you see over and over are the ones that are successful. I'm almost done, in case anyone's like wondering if we're going to break soon. I just want to touch on a couple tools. One is Hootsuite and one is MailChimp. I mean, these are tools that you should be familiar with if you're the marketing person for your game. And if you're not a marketing person, then there's also people that will do that on a contract basis. I can recommend people don't just go with anyone. Make sure, someone that that's run successful Kickstarter campaigns recommends the person. But Hootsuite I want to touch on because if you are running a lot of social media accounts and you want to do Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, you can do it in Hootsuite all in one. So I have a particular tab open, but you can see at the top here that I have a tab for Star Realms, White Wizard Games, Hero Realms. I even have my personal whole food adventures, which is like vegetarian food, and I have my personal Twitter on here. Here in this tab, I've created a couple things while I'm traveling. I like to have tabs that are focused around where I'm at. So I created a list on Twitter of game designers, and I can follow their feed. So when you go into your Twitter feed, and there's just all kinds of stuff. This allows you to look, I want to look at game designers' feeds, or I created this one, Board Gamer Ladies, because, I'm trying to help. I personally want to get to know more women in the industry, so watching what they're saying and interacting with them, it makes it easier for me to see them in a single feed. I have a feed here about Tabletop Network and BGG-Con too. So when you're at a convention, you can create a feed that's just that hashtag and quickly go in and look at it. So from this tool, the new post, I could post to any of my channels. I could post to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, on White Wizard Games, Hero Realms, Star Realms, my personal, etc., from a single place. And you can do it on your phone too. So I don't make any money if you decide to use them, and it's not free, but I personally, if you have more than 2 or 3 accounts, highly recommend it. And MailChimp, I'm just going to say you don't have to use MailChimp, but you should be using something to organize your mailing list if you're doing email marketing. That could be a whole 3-hour talk in and of itself. So, if people are interested in learning about email marketing, I could do an online thing about that and cover it. MailChimp, I'm an expert on. I don't know all the other systems. If you have 2,000 or less names in your database, it's free. As you grow, it gets really expensive, but it works really well. This is my contact information. So you can add me on Facebook. You don't have to, no pressure. And follow me on social media, no pressure. We're also, I'll mention, just because I'm the marketing person, that we're running a Star Realms tournament on Thursday night if anyone wants to come and play some Star Realms at BGG-Con. And that is, I think, everything I have, yeah. I'm not going to touch on that. Any questions, or am I over my time? Anyone have any specific questions they want to ask? I know most people haven't really opened up for questions, but if anyone has anything. No? All right, thank you. Okay.